WOD Pod. Join me as I sit down with CrossFitters, fitness experts, top coaches, professional athletes, and other well-known gym goers to listen to their journey through fitness. The entire conversation with Connie was inspirational. Connie talks about her experience suffering with anorexia and how she managed to recover from the eating disorder that could have been life-threatening. Her huge achievements in a short space of time really highlight her commitment and determination towards her new goals, and I can't wait to see her success continuing in CrossFit over the next few years. Did you think it was did it play out fairly? Would you have said that it was a fair result?
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I think for my own benefit, I wanted to win. If I'd won against a semi-finals athlete, in my own head I was like, right, I'm off to semis next year. I can do this. That's going to be my goal.
Right, Connie, welcome to the WOD Pod, Series 2, Episode 7. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm really good.
Good. I competed at CrossFit Rotherham yesterday.
Okay.
Don't normally do comps, to be honest, so I've got serious DOMs right now, but...
How did it go?
So, my girlfriend has never done CrossFit before.
Okay.
And she's an ex-gymnast, but she's never done CrossFit. So I said, look, why don't we just enter a scaled comp? Mm-hmm. Throw you in at the deep end. And there was 28 teams. We came third, so it's not bad.
Okay.
Pretty good considering she didn't know what she was doing. And on the way there, we get there, the athlete briefing, and it was the last workout was wall walks. And she was like, what's a wall walk? I was like, this is going to be, could be a long day. Had to explain that. And there was something else, and she was doing dumbbell snatches, and I was like, okay. Just before we started, I was like showing her the technique on how to do a dumbbell snatch. So, but I think the gymnastics helped.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a fun comp. Yeah, that was my first comp at CrossFit Rotherham.
Was
actually.
It?
Yeah, as a teen.
Okay. Individual?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll come on to your CrossFit in a bit. Are you living in Leeds now? Because I've seen you be training at Form.
Yes, I'm living at Leeds.
Have you always lived in mighty Yorkshire?
Yes. Well, I was born in Luton, down south, but I moved up when I was 4.
Right, okay.
I want to say.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so pretty much.
When I saw your controversial win, well, we'll come on to that as well, Ragnarok, I had a look at your profile, saw a few posts, which were incredible. We'll start off the podcast deep. We'll then probably end it on a lighter note. But would you mind sharing your kind of journey from being sort of 14, 15, 16 through to now?
So when I was younger, I competed in triathlons. I also did trampolining a little bit. But triathlon was my main focus. I loved it. It was an endurance sport. Most people know what triathlon is, running, swimming and biking. So I grew up doing that. And then at the age of 14, I developed anorexia nervosa, which took over my life. I stopped being able to take part in sport. I was hospitalised for 6 months on a psychiatric ward. And that meant that my whole world stopped for the best part of 2 years. I wasn't allowed to do sport. I wasn't allowed to go to school. I couldn't do anything. So yeah, that was kind of what happened when I was 14, 15, 16.
Was there anything in particular that triggered it, or anything that you can pinpoint? Or
I think because I took part in triathlons as a kid, I was always more of a muscular child. I was bigger than a lot of girls. I weighed more than them, just simply because I held more muscle mass than other girls. I went to the hospital for, I can't even remember now, it was some paediatric appointment, and the paediatrician said that I was in the BMI scale obese. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I take part in sport, I can't be called obese. And so that then in my head was right, I need to lose weight. Yeah. So I then went on a spiral downhill. I started losing weight, and it was healthy to start with. Didn't necessarily need to lose any weight. I just needed to grow upwards a little bit more. Yeah. Everyone gets that puppy fat at about 12, 13. And then it became an addiction. My personality is very addictive. So I then became addicted to losing weight, and it got to a point where I couldn't stop.
Yeah, I can't believe that doctors still use the BMI as a thing. It is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
they've got no idea. They don't take into account body fat, muscle mass at all. So the whole thing's irrelevant in my eyes.
Yeah.
I read in a post that you were knocking on death's door at one point. How does that make you feel now, in the position you're in now, looking back on that or thinking about that?
I think for me at that time, I didn't believe what anyone was telling me. everyone was saying you're going to die, like, if you continue the way that you're going. I never was suicidal. Like, people get that confused. I never wanted to die.
Yep.
That was never something that came across my mind. But I did reach a point where if I continued, I was going to end up dead. Like, they couldn't, and that's why I was then hospitalised. Now, looking back, I can't believe I put my body through that. Like, I couldn't imagine starving myself now. If I don't eat within like 2 hours, I'm a horrible person to be around. So my mindset has completely changed. I would class myself as pretty much fully recovered now. I don't think I'm ever going to be fully okay with everything. Food is still, some days are harder than others, just like everybody tells you. But I'd say I'm pretty much there, 100% recovered. But my mindset towards food is so different now than it was then, and I can't believe I ever did that to myself.
Talk to me about your recovery journey then.
So for me, my recovery journey, I would say, started 6 months after I left hospital. When I left hospital, the only reason I left was because I wanted to leave, and I gained the weight that they told me to gain so that I could get out of hospital and they could stop forcing me to do what I didn't want to do. When I left, I then lost everything that I'd gained in hospital. So I think a lot of people like almost glamorise psychiatric wards now, especially on TikTok. Like, I see videos all the time, and as a 15-year-old girl, that was one of the worst experiences I have ever been through. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. I think a lot of people don't actually understand what goes on in a psych ward, like things I saw. It was very, very traumatic. I can't think about a lot of it because it was awful, but I think
so many people live with anorexia forever and they never get out of that. What do you think were the key factors that I guess you had to make the decision to recover?
So when I left hospital, I lost everything and I was threatened with hospital again. And like I said, I did not want to go back to hospital. So I then made it my life's mission almost to start gaining weight. I got a PT. And in order to be allowed to go to my PT, I had to eat. So that was kind of motivation for me to eat. Then I started running again. I wanted to get back into triathlons. And then my coach got me into CrossFit and was like, you should try CrossFit. I think you'd really enjoy it. Like, it's not about body image. It's not about anything to do with the way that you look. It's about how strong you are as a woman. And so I gave it a go and I was like, right, I want to get as strong as all these girls who are at the CrossFit Games. I want to look like them. I want to be muscular. I want to be bigger. So I'm just going to eat and fuel my training.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I do, like, I've raved about CrossFit for a while, because not to kind of like put myself in a similar scenario, but when I did men's physique, I had to get my body fat percentage was about 4%, and it was so unhealthy. And then after the comp, the rebound from the comp was so unhealthy. I had an issue with like how I saw food post men's physique, which I think that industry is, I think there are a very few people that are in that industry that can manage it sensibly. I saw a lot of other competitors that were also struggling with like post-comp rebounds, like struggling to then not see, they got used to seeing themselves at 5% body fat and thought, I need to maintain this. Well, you literally can't function. You can't do anything at that sort of level. Then when I found CrossFit, I was like, hang on a minute, it's all about high perform. And when it comes down to that, I can, like, for me, I was like, great, I can go and have a beer on a weekend. I can have whatever I want to eat on a Friday, but I can absolutely send it during my training. It's a great balance. Like, as an all-round sport for that, it's really well balanced. What would you say to anyone then who may be in a similar scenario in terms of not necessarily not being in CrossFit, but doing something that is more about their body image than performance?
So I think for me now, I don't care about the way that my body looks, and in order to get to that point, I had to stop caring what other people were saying to me. I think if you're stuck in a position where you're scared of gaining weight, or you're scared of getting out of looking a certain way, everybody's got to change at some point, and you kind of just got to take that into consideration and be like, am I thriving as a person? Am I enjoying my life? And am I doing what I think my full potential is? And if you're not, then your body isn't right for what you're doing at that moment in time. For me, my body cannot function at the weight that it was. it can't function probably less than like 60 kilos because that's where my body's meant to naturally sit. And if I get below that, then I start being moody, my hair starts falling out, I'm just not a very nice person to be around, and my body doesn't function as it needs to. One thing I would say for girls especially is make sure you've got a period. So many people, and especially athletes, are like, oh, well, I don't have a period, but that's just because I train hard. No, it's not. I have a period now, and I train the most I've ever trained in my entire life. That is based on body fat percentage, and you as a woman need to have that period, otherwise you are at risk of osteoporosis and so many other things. So making sure you have your period is one massive thing. Like, it's nothing to do with you being an athlete, as so many people say.
I think society as a whole, I think it's getting better now. I think the whole start of Instagram, like, I think now Instagram's actually becoming a platform for information. It's much more video driven, like content. Whether rewind 5 or 6 years, it was like, if you're not a fitness model, it was all images. It was like creating this really toxic world of that's what you should look like. And everyone's so different. And I think that has to, play a big part for, people kind of getting the wrong perception of how they should look.
Yeah.
Quick question then in terms of job now, career-wise. I know you mentioned you did a bit of lifeguarding.
Yeah.
What are you doing now for career except for winning all your prize money?
So I work at Form. I'm a coach. So I work part-time so that I still have time to do all my training. So I'm a coach. I did go to uni a couple of years ago, and I went to be a nurse. And I then realised I couldn't train as I wanted to, and that a lot of girls aren't similar in my age. So they all want to go out drinking. They want to sleep until 1 p.m. and then eat takeaway every single night, and for me that just was not what I wanted to do. That wasn't where I wanted to be at that point in time, so I couldn't get on with any of the girls that I lived with, and I don't think nursing was 100% for me. I love helping people, which is why coaching's amazing for me, but it wasn't, and the NHS is going downhill very rapidly at the moment. So
it's a weird one, because like my sister was so set on going to Durham University, spent ages getting there. She got there, and then the people she was with were so different and not how she wanted them to be, and she just couldn't gel with them and just left the uni. And I was like, it's crazy that your surrounding can reflect on like how, if you're willing to stay there or not. I was like, you spent all that time trying to get to university and just you're in with the wrong people and it doesn't work out. I guess that was a similar scenario.
Yeah, it was.
Why put yourself through that if you're not enjoying it and you're not on their level? Just back out. So I didn't know you were a coach at Form, so that's cool. I'm gonna have to come over to Form a bit more often then.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to CrossFit. So when did you first discover CrossFit? When was like the...
So my running coach was actually pointed me in the direction of CrossFit. They were like, oh, you should definitely go and try it out. I was very much into fitness and weightlifting at that point, and lifting weights and getting more muscular. So I was like, CrossFit looks cool. But I saw it online and I was like, oh my God, there's all these girls doing muscle ups and so many different things. And I was like, I can't walk on my hands. I've never been upside down before. I was never a gymnast as a kid. So for me, I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? But I went and gave it a shot, and lo and behold, I stopped running, stopped triathlons, and went into CrossFit.
I think that's it. Whatever background you've come from, that's your strength. So you kind of park that, and then you go, right, what are my weaknesses? And focus on those. So for me, I actually did gymnastics as a child quite a bit. However, I've never been that strong. So I'm trying just to do front squats as much as I can. So for me, I know that that's my weakness. Whether some people come from a weightlifting background, and then they're again, gymnastics or even just running can be so hard, and that's all they do. So going through your CrossFit career, I'm going to say, to date, I've kind of gone back, had a look at, first comps. I think your first comp as an individual was Rainhill. Could be wrong.
It was the teen comp at Rotherham, but that was November before Rainhill. So Rainhill had classes my first individual
comp.
Adult comp. Is that what you call it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What was your experience at Rainhill? Like, what were your thoughts on it as a comp?
So I went into it, and to be honest, I just went in to have a bit of fun. I wasn't expecting to place where I did in seedings, and so when I went, like, I had my whole old gym that I used to train at when I lived at home with my parents. They all came and supported me, and it was probably the best experience ever. Like, everyone was shouting me on. I loved every second of it, and I was super lucky with the workouts then. My gymnastics weren't amazing, and my lifting wasn't amazing, but most of the workouts were endurance, like not necessarily endurance, but more cardio based than they were skill based. So I was pretty lucky, as in that was like my wheelhouse at the time, because I'd just come from running and triathlons.
How long had you done CrossFit before Rainhill?
When was Rainhill?
Good question.
I started after lockdown, so it was definitely after 2020. I want to say I started CrossFit about a year, and then I started taking it seriously about 2 or 3 months before I did Rainhill.
Right, okay.
So before that, I was training like 3 times a week. I was still doing my triathlon training on the side of CrossFit. I was using CrossFit as like an enhancer for my triathlon training. And then I stopped triathlons completely about 3 months before. And then I was training like 5 times a week, CrossFit, so.
Your swimming must be pretty good then.
Yeah, I'd say it was, yeah.
Just what came to mind was WOD on the Lock do a great comp.
Oh, do they?
So it's in Scotland. WOD Powders sponsored it last year and the year before, but all the triathlon athletes do really well because it's cycling. There's a cycling event, which is like mountain biking, but and then they did an event last year, which was a 5k run and then a swim across a lock.
Oh, cool.
And it was like 5 degrees.
Yeah.
So a lot of the athletes were like not prepared for that. And then they had to run back into the arena. So it was quite a good event. So if you're ever fancying a bit more triathlon-based events, you could give one a look.
Yeah, that's cool. The bigger comps that I've done have had similar things in, where it's been like swimming with something else, or we did like kayaking with like running and stuff. So like anything paired together that's like cardio-based, it's like I'm so ready for that workout. Yeah.
So then you went on to European Championships. At, I think it was intermediate level. Yeah. So still early days. Yeah. And how did you find this comp?
I really enjoyed that one. I went into it and I can't even remember where I placed. I think it was like 7th again. So I went into it, I wasn't expecting to podium. I was just expecting to have a good time, see where I was at. At that point, my weightlifting wasn't great and neither was my gymnastics, but my cardio has pretty much always been there. Good, so I've never needed to like focus on that necessarily, but gymnastics and weightlifting weren't 100%, so that's why I entered intermediate instead of the RX category. It was also to build my confidence in comps because I'd never done them before. I'd done a couple, and so a massive comp like European Champs, I kind of wanted to like go in and just have fun with it and not have loads of pressure.
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes don't do scaled comps because they feel like they can jump into intermediate or RX, and I think the right way to do it is, if you've never competed before, go in as a scaled athlete, because even if you can do the movements of an intermediate comp, it's like understanding how a comp works, preparing yourself for 5 events in a day. I think you should always go in at the lowest level, and if you get a podium in a scaled comp, then that's you done. You're on to intermediate and work your way up. So I think the right thing to do is go in at the level, a lower level if you think that's where you're at, or you've not got the comp experience. But you won, didn't you?
Yes, I did win. And I was not expecting that. Going into the final day, I think it was a 3-day comp. Going into the final day, I was in 5th, I want to say. And so I was like, oh, cool. This, like, I'm higher than I placed when I qualified. Let's just have fun with this final day. And then somehow I ended up 1st. So yeah, that was really cool.
So you must have won either the last few events.
I didn't win one single workout in that comp. But the girl who was in 1st couldn't do legless rope climbs, and we had legless rope climbs in the final or the semi-final, something like that. And so she just struggled through those, whereas I managed to do them. Yeah, I managed to do them. So.
What was your favourite workout of the comp?
The endurance one, the 5k run into the kayak.
Okay.
So it was like, I think it was 2.5k with a weighted vest in like over obstacles and stuff, and then it was 2.5k normal running and then kayaking.
How far was the kayak? I can't really imagine.
I don't
was
even
know. Was
it
like out to a buoy and back?
Yeah, but it was so hard going out and then turning back around. It was so much easier. You had like the drag wind behind you, so you just like gliding along.
And then you turn the corner and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Kayaking on the spot.
Yeah.
Cool, so we're on to last year's comp season then. So I think you kicked it off with the Castle Games.
Yes, I did.
Which is now under new ownership of Graft Events.
Yes, so it is. I saw that actually.
It should be quite cool.
Yeah.
That was your first RX comp?
Yep.
And you podiumed?
Yes, I came second. Yeah, second.
How did Castle Games compare to the other comps?
So I think the one thing I'd say with Castle Games was there was a lot of heavy stuff in it. Like we had a workout where it was 400 meter run. Or it started with like burpees over line, then it was handstand walks, then it was like sandbag carry, and then it was a 400 meter run with hurdles in it. But the sandbag carry was double the distance of the handstand walks. So for me, as a smaller person, it was a lot harder for me because I'd much rather the handstand walks have been the same distance because the girl who won, her handstand walks weren't great, but she just moved so much faster. She must have weighed 5 or 10 kilos more than me. So it was a tough comp as in it was really heavy and more towards a bigger athlete. So the final workout was row and snatches increasing in weight. If that had been row, snatches and handstand push-ups, maybe the workout would have been slightly different.
Or if it had been snatches at the same weight but just more volume. I think when you get to the heavier weight, if you've not been training for that either. Yeah,
but then I walked away and I was like, right, I need to get strong. That's what I learned from that comp. I'm not saying that I want to be able to walk into a comp, it be any workout and me be able to win. I don't want to walk into a comp and think, oh shit, this isn't it. I can't.
If you already know that. I think that's the beauty of comps is all it does is really highlight what you're bad at or what's your 100%. Weakness. So yesterday's comp, me and Georgina left and we're like, we need to learn to row. Because 2 of the workouts was like rowing for time and we came off the row like way after everyone else and I was like, yeah, I'm not even meant to be doing scaled either. So I was like, I need to start learning to row. So June, you then had Battle for Middle Ground.
Yep.
That was the Ragnarok comp.
Yep.
Bit of a controversial one then. So you and Jen Muir came first, joint place.
Yep.
Talk me through like the events throughout the comp and then obviously the final.
Being new to CrossFit, I went into the first day, I was shitting myself. Like, imagine being up against someone who's a semi-finals athlete and you're new to the comp. I think I qualified 3rd in that comp. So I was like going into it and I was like, shit, I'm out my depth here. And so I went into it and the first day I did pretty well. I was happy with my performance, but I think that I let the nerves get ahead of me a bit and I was scared of who I was up against. Going into the final day, I was like, right, I just need to give it my all now. I went in 3rd place. So I won every single workout that day, which was a cool feeling.
And it was a 2-day comp?
Yeah, it was a 2-day comp. So the first day, I don't think I won any workout. And then the second day, I won, every single workout. So that was a cool feeling, apart from the final, but that's controversial, so...
Okay, well, we'll talk about that then. So basically it was an error with the bars. Your bar was loaded correctly?
Yeah, my bar was fine.
What did you... I mean, the athlete shouldn't be checking the bar. It should be loaded correctly. Did you think it was, like, did it play out fairly? Would you have said that it was a fair result? Or did you leave feeling like you deserved the win?
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I think for my own, like, benefit, I wanted to win because... if I'd won against a semi-finals athlete, in my own head, I was like, right, I'm off to semis next year. Like, I can do this. That's going to be my goal. I went into the final and it was 1 point. I was in first and Jen was in second. And I wanted to win and so did she. So it was going to be an amazing race. Like, I was so excited for it. I don't think we spoke once in the warm-up area. Like, we were both like... ready and raring to go.
Yep.
Did the first 2 workouts, so it was like a elimination. So they took people out of each round. I won the first 2 rounds, and then we went into the final. Oh, I think there might have been 4. I can't
4, yeah.
So I won the first 3, and the final round, Jen realised the bar was loaded wrong. But that barbell had been on the floor the previous 3 rounds. So why did nobody say anything
up to that point? So I mean, either that shows that she was kind of like a good enough athlete to identify straight away, and the other athletes may not have triggered that the bar was loaded incorrectly.
Yeah. And I suppose like it's easy for me to say because I didn't have that barbell. I didn't know.
And had it been the other way around and you'd gone to pick up that bar, you'd have been like, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
So, however, the fact that you won all 3, that could have been taken into account perhaps. And I suppose the fact you won all the events that day, like it was all nailed on for you to win that comp. So I can see why it's frustrating. It also was a shame that like you hadn't had like no one knew who actually won. There was no one got to run it back, or I feel like they could have gone, okay, we're gonna make you join first, but then come back into a gym and run it back fresh. That'd have been quite cool to see. But no doubt you'll be up against her pretty soon.
And Jen was sound, like she was such a nice person, and I think we were both just annoyed. In that situation, you're both going to think you would have won.
Yep.
And we don't know who would have won. I might have gone off too hot at the start and not been able to hold on to that barbell at the end. Jen might not have been able to hold on to the barbell. We don't know what would have happened. I was convinced that I was going to win, but who knows?
Yeah, and I suppose she may know because she may have thought I was going 100% for those first 3 and I couldn't keep up with Connie, therefore I would have lost. She may have been going at 70% thinking, I'm just going to save myself for that last one.
Yeah,
so
because that's the one that counts.
That's the one that matters, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I went 100% for any of the rounds. I knew that final round counted, but I also knew I needed to get through every single round in order to get to that final round. So in my head, I was like, right, I need to go hard because these girls that I'm up against are good. Like, they are fit, but I also need to save myself for that final bar. I was also so confused with the final bar. Like, I didn't get through it as fast as I wanted to because I was like, why hasn't Jen picked up a barbell? I've just done 2 reps and she's not even picked it up yet. Like, I'm so confused. And then I saw everyone coming and crowding around and I was just taking time to like process what was going on. So I finished the workout, but I didn't finish it potentially as fast as I would have done if it was me and her up against each other.
Yeah. No doubt there will be another Connie Jen showdown probably quite soon. Has there been one since then? Have you been in a comp with her?
No, I don't think so.
So the next one you did was strength and depth.
Yep.
Did that run well? Was the comp good?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the comp. That was one that I didn't know whether to enter Elite or RX. I hadn't been... The qualifiers for Ragnarok hadn't come out yet, so I didn't know where I'd qualified there. If I'd known I'd qualified Elite, I probably would have gone Elite at SID, but I didn't know. And this was the first year I was going RX as an athlete, so I was like, right, I'm just going to go for RX. You've
got to remember at this point, you've only really done CrossFit for like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
So I think to be still looking at RX after 2 years of doing CrossFit is very normal. Like I wouldn't kind of, I don't think anyone could kind of look at that and go, you should be going to Elite at that stage. However, you did win.
Yeah.
Was it comfortable? Did you cruise the events? Or
I won by 30 points.
Okay.
So
pretty convincing.
Yeah, the race was between second and third in the final.
Yeah. How did the events kind of play in your favour? What was your favourite event? What event challenged you where you thought, okay, I need to work on those?
Rope climbs. That was my worst workout, was the rope climbs. The rope was so slippy. I jumped up and I tried to clamp my feet and my feet wouldn't clamp. So I was technically just doing like legless rope climbs. I was so annoyed. Like, rope climbs are usually pretty good for me. I'm usually all right at them. It was with handstand walks, which are probably my strongest point. Like, anything overhead or like holding myself overhead, I'm pretty good at. But the rope climbs just went to, they bombed out on them.
It's quite interesting that you said that handstand walks are potentially like a strong point now. When you first discovered CrossFit, you said those people are walking on their hands.
Yeah.
How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
I suppose that's just down to working on what you think you're not going to be good at and getting good.
Yeah.
In terms of, so when you're in a comp, how much of like your skill set and performance matters versus your mental strength? Like, would you say that mental strength is important in CrossFit?
I work so well under pressure. So qualifiers are never great for me because I'm working against myself. If somebody's next to me and they're pushing hard, I'm going to push even harder. Like, I want to win. So for me, the physical part is never an issue. I'm never like, oh, I'm physically not going to be able to do this. Unless like 100 kilo snatch came up or something where I'm like, yeah, I physically can't do that. But usually, most of the time, it's never going to be an issue, the physical side of it. The mental side, however, gets in my head a lot, especially when I'm near the top of the podium and I'm like, right, there's 2 points in it, like it was for me and Jen, like 1 point in it in the final. I was like, shit, this means everything now. And the mental side of it, you can't let that get over you. Because if I was to walk into that and be like, oh my God, she's going to win, she's going to win, she's going to win, then I would never have performed as well as I'd hoped. Don't get me wrong, I still get nervous and I'm still stood behind talking to my coach like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this.
But that's comp experience. The more comps you do, the more it just becomes another day at another comp. Even yesterday, I was like still quite nervous about the workouts. I'm like, this is the smallest comp. Like I shouldn't be that bothered, but I still get really nervous about those sort of things. Do you check? Sounds quite weird, but do you check leaderboards throughout the comp? Are you kind of?
Yes, because I want to know who I need to beat. I'm very strategic like that. I want to know who I need to beat and who I need to be looking out for in order to make a place up on a podium or in the leaderboard.
Because I think you do get some athletes that kind of go, I'm running my own race. I'll look at the leaderboard at the end of the day and see how I do, so that it doesn't get in my head. Because a lot of times you can go, okay, I'm 1 point off first. Suddenly you've got that like extra pressure just sat on you. So I guess it works both ways. Nutrition plays like a huge part in performance. Can you share some insights into your nutrition around CrossFit training?
So I eat a hell of a lot. I eat between 4,500 calories a day. I don't track because my past I would become obsessed with it, but I just try to make sure that I'm fueling all the time. I try not to feel hungry before I go and train. Like I hear people be like, oh, I can't train on a full stomach. I'm like, I'd rather my stomach be full than be empty when I'm going and training. I'm never going to get the most out of my session. I think I've also trained so much with a fuller stomach because on comp days I always probably eat more than I do on training days, but my stomach is always not wanting to eat. So training myself to fill my stomach up even when I don't want to eat is very important, because if I don't eat on a comp day, it's not going to end well. No. It's such a weird thing. I need to look into the science behind it, but every comp I do, I'm like, I can't eat anything. I'm like, I just can't do it. I'll have like one Haribo and I'm like, I can't. I don't know why. I'm going to have to find out why that is. But you're so right about that. And you feel sick and you're like, oh, I can't eat anything. And sometimes I do need like my boyfriend to like, just eat this. So that I'm not like starving myself. But and
I think that's also a reflection on how much you train. So I think a lot of people will think that's a lot to be eating, but then they're not training at the same level you are. So,
and I'm always hungry. It's not like I'm eating and I'm always full. Like I'll finish training and I'll be like, right, I need to go eat something now. Or I'll have like a Lucozade mid-training session and like 3 saurines, and people are like, how are you eating that during your training? I'm like, well, if I didn't, I'm going to be starving for the next workout.
So in terms of like, I know you mentioned previously you were fairly addictive into your eating disorder. Do you think that's almost a replacement for CrossFit? Have you become like switched? Is it almost just gone like flick the switch, it's now focused on CrossFit? So when I was under a psychiatrist, they said that a lot of anorexics have got very addictive traits, and that's why they become addictive to the scales going down. They become addicted to how big, like measuring themselves, weighing themselves all the time. So for me now, I needed to put that addiction into something else so that I'm not focused on controlling my food. I'm focused on controlling my performance. So it's taken me a long time to get to this point now where exercise is no longer about burning calories. It's about performance and about the best way of training. Like before, I'd train just because I needed to burn a certain amount of calories, and once I burnt that certain amount of calories, I'd stop training. Whereas now I'm like, I don't care. Like if I burn a certain amount of calories, I still need to eat, because otherwise my muscles are gonna like deteriorate. So and I suppose you replaced it with something that's a good alternative. Like it's a great thing to be addicted to. I mean, like you can tell that in 3 years you've gone from scaled to elite.
Yeah.
Leading on to that then, this season, 2024, have you got any goals? You mentioned semi-finals.
Yeah, I think that's my main goal. Although they've dropped the spaces going to semis from 60 to 40, which makes it even more of a fine line. I think for me at the moment, it's how I execute quarters. So last year, executing quarters went down the drain. Like I was working a 12-hour shift because I was a lifeguard, 6 while 6, and then going straight to the gym and doing quarters. And that was probably the worst thing I could have possibly done. I was tired, I was overthinking the workouts, I was getting stressed, and that just wasn't going to help anything. Yeah. My camera angles weren't great when I was setting it up. It wasn't ideal. So this year, especially because I work in a CrossFit gym now, they're a lot more understanding of my training and my competitions. So for me now, I want to aim for semis, but if it doesn't happen this year, then I've always got next year.
Have you got any other competitions like lined up that you're aiming for? So elite level?
So I've got the Arnold coming up in March.
Yep.
And then I want to do Castle Games again because I want to win. I feel like that's just such a me thing to say, but I
suppose doing a comp and not winning, it's almost like unfinished business.
Yeah.
It's like I need to get back, prove myself.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to go to Castle Games and I want to win it. And then I want to do Ragnarok again.
And win it.
Yeah. Unfinished business with that one. And then I don't know yet. It depends. I want to do some later on in the year, maybe abroad, but it depends what happens.
Yeah, I suppose you can't plan too far in advance depending on how things go.
Yeah.
Arnold's will be really good.
Yeah.
Where did you qualify? I
qualified 5th. So yeah, when I looked at the girls that I'd competed, like that were entering as well, they've been to like semis, and yeah, it's cool. I'm excited.
The fact that so many people qualify as well, I don't think you can look at 5th and think, I'm already far down on the leaderboard. I think when you look, there's hundreds of people that qualify.
Yeah.
So 5th's right up there.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, and I'm excited. And like I said, qualify is never my best show. I'm always better
with a crowd, with an audience, with the pressure.
Like last year when I came first in both Ragnarok and Sid, I qualified 3rd in both of them, I think. So it just shows like I can make my way up there.
Anyone doing Arnold's better be ready.
Yes, they had.
You've erupted onto the CrossFit scene. Are you working with any sponsors at the moment?
No, so I've not got any sponsors at the moment. I feel like I'm very much I'll let my hard work show.
Yep.
Rather than posting all over Instagram. I post on Instagram more for myself to see where I've come.
Yep.
But yeah, I kind of want to focus on me and focus on my training.
Are there any brands that you would work with, or
I don't think there's any I'm like, oh, I really want to work with them. There's brands that as a kid I probably would have loved to have worked with, but then you hear stories about them and you're like, oh, maybe they're not the best person to work with, and
it kind of takes your focus off what you're actually doing in the first place. You then you see like Sarah Sigmund's daughter, she's kind of so brand focused now, and it's like, is she doing the training she was doing before, or is she traveling the world with brands?
It's not authentic anymore though. No. If all I'm posting is, go try this brand out, and is that actually what you like, or is it just because they're paying you?
Yeah. Going to move on to some rapid fire questions to finish. Favorite brand of CrossFit trainers, or what do you wear all the time?
You see, it changes. So I've got 3 pairs of shoes. I've got Nobles, I've got my Metcons, and then I've got Rads. Nobles, 100% love them. They're my favourite shoes. Metcons, depends on the make.
Yep.
I feel like they're very hard, so I wouldn't run in them. And anything like skipping or jumping, they're not great for. And then my Rads, I think they're similar to Nobles, as in like their structure. Yep. That sounds really like weird.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What would you wear on a comp day if you're doing a comp this weekend?
Noble.
Okay, that's the answer then.
Yeah.
What's your favourite max lift event you've done in a comp? Or lift event, doesn't have to be max lift.
probably at Ragnarok, where it was the snatch into the hang snatch, and then was it a clean into a front squat into an overhead, something like that.
That was a complex? Was it a 2-part complex?
Yeah, so it was like you built up to your snatch in like 10 minutes.
And then you had the rest of the time cap to do the clean.
That was probably my favourite because I PB'd both. So
yeah, that's
cool.
always going to be a good win.
Yeah.
What's your number one accessory when doing active recovery? Like, do you use massage guns? No. Do you use bands? Foam roll?
I don't foam roll. Probably just stretching. Just stretching. I don't really use a massage gun. I have one, but I don't really use it. I'm not sure why.
Do you use an app like Goad?
Yeah, I use Goad.
Yep. I always ask that question just because it's for my own, like, I'm just always curious to know what, like, elite level athletes do.
Yeah.
Because I asked Georgia Davenport and she said she does nothing. And then, like, a month later, I spoke to a coach and she'd, like, injured herself. And then he was like, yeah, no, she's doing all the rehab now.
Yeah.
It was a silly answer at the time from her. Yeah. But, yeah, it's funny.
People are trying to get me into ice baths, but I'm just not that person. I hate them. I, like, try and get in a cold shower in an evening and I'm like, why would I do this to myself?
No.
Like, I've just trained as hard as I can and now I'm going to come home and put myself in another situation that I don't want to be in.
Yeah. I mean, I get it if you're at that level and it's like, each margin makes a difference.
Yeah.
But there's no way I'm doing it because I'm like, I'm not doing 80% of the things right in the first place. Like, what's the tiny little 1% going to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't bother with them either. What's your go-to song if you're going for a big lift? Or, like, genre?
I'm probably the worst person to ask for this.
Or does your music just vary loads?
Yeah. And I also don't know the name of songs and I don't know the name of artists.
Okay.
Put a song on and I'll be, like, skipping through it until I find one that I'm like,
to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we could, like, link your Apple playlist.
Yeah.
And then people can just understand it that way.
Yeah.
What's the best CrossFit box you've trained at?
Good question.
Maybe what's the best CrossFit box you've trained at that you've trained at like once or twice that you've visited that's not a regular?
You know what? I haven't trained at many CrossFit boxes. I enjoyed WIT when I went down. Although the atmosphere was busy, and I'm not always a person who likes busy. I like to just have a space where I know I can train what I need to do, and no one's going to get in my way.
Yeah,
so
WIT's like a very well-presented CrossFit box.
It looks cool, and the photos I got was great,
yeah.
But training-wise, probably not. What other boxes have I
Sometimes
been to?
like the Spit and Sawdust, like really rough, old school CrossFit boxes are the best.
Yeah.
Where there's like literally nothing but one rig and some bumper plates and a barbell.
And the roof's caving in.
Yeah, it's all falling apart.
Yeah.
I have actually heard some rumours. This is obviously rumours at this stage that WIT's actually gone into administration, but who knows? This could be being edited out of the podcast. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna have to look into it. But yeah, it could be being bought, or I think it's being bought by JD Sport. No. Yeah, I think it's a sports brand that are buying it.
Just got bought like a week ago.
There you go.
On LinkedIn.
What's the company? Was it JD?
No, it wasn't JD. It was like
Sports Direct.
No,
I think
it was completely separate.
Oh, someone else.
Yeah.
Oh.
There you go. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so we're going to finish the podcast there on that bit of a weird note. WIT's going. To finish podcast, Hybrid Academy have done some WOD Pod t-shirts. So you can take one of these.
Oh,
and
cool.
Carter, I don't know whether you've seen them. They produce water bottles. Pete has been on the podcast. What was it, episode 3? So 4 episodes ago.
Okay.
Pete came on. He's the owner of Carter.
Cool.
It's a water bottle. It's trying to rival like the Yetis, the Stanley water bottles.
Okay.
However, it's a barbell jack at the same time. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So quite gimmicky.
That's cool.
All podcast guests are getting one. But yeah, it's really cool. So basically it can hold 250 kilos. So you'd probably be all right.
250 kilos.
Yeah. So if you so you lift the bar onto it and it can hold 250, which
also it's not going to break if I accidentally drop my barbell on it.
You can drop 250 onto it and it survives.
Well, that's not going to happen. So
but yeah, so it's a Carter bottle to take. A quick plug for them. So if you are interested in getting a barbell jack water bottle, go to carterbottle.com or carter.com. one of the two. And yeah, lastly, what's your Instagram? Because I'm sure some people want to see these event wins this year.
It's Connie _Easby. Oh no, Connie Easby _ potentially.
Okay. Whichever one it is.
I should know that.
Whichever one it is, it'll be on the screen. People can go and follow your progress throughout this year.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to seeing these event wins.
Yeah, I'm excited for this year.
And yeah, I think that's everything. Enjoyed the episode? All good?
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed that episode, and a huge thank you for listening. Make sure you're following the pod on Instagram at the.wod.pod. The podcast is sponsored by WOD Powders. That's at WOD Powders on Instagram. Please show some support to the pod by either sharing this episode with a mate or buying some supplements from wodpowders.co.uk. See you guys next week.